I am holding on to the position. And it's quite a yay, no, yay, no, yay, and then yay. And this is where I add aggressively. And this is the first time where I have one of those life-changing trades. And on this particular day, which I remember so vividly because it was my mother's birthday, and I unfortunately landed myself in hot water in the Danish press because everybody was up in arms over the market falling as much as they were. This was the Greek bond crisis. We have just issued a school run sell, a first buy negative buy setup in the FTSE, but it is not triggering yet. And the market on this day goes limit down. And as it's limit down, the broker that I was trading with at the time, they didn't know it was limit down or whatever the reason. And so I just kept selling. Or maybe it was like one point before limit down. Either way, some of my trades were cancelled, but I had been short for a few months and I had added aggressively. The moral of the story is I didn't trade with a target. If I had traded with a target, I'm not sure that I would have capitalized on this cascade here. And as a result of it, once you've experienced something like this that is truly financially life-changing, it's very difficult to then go back and trading with targets on a 2-to-1 ratio, for example. Another example was in 2018, and it was December. This story is, I don't come out smelling so well on this, but I made a lot of money on this move down. However, on the Christmas Day, or second Christmas Day, which is this big fella here, I gave a lot of it back. But again, didn't trade with targets. Anyway, so that was a trip down memory lane. And the reason why I'm perhaps not the best proponent of trading with targets, and that's because of the environment and the circumstances that I have experienced that has made a difference in my career. I once read a proposal that you are inclined to gravitate towards the trading style that you first encounter success with. Now that might be a no-brainer, but it just so happens that my first trade that I made some meaningful money on was on the short side. And since then, I suppose I've had an affinity for trading the short side, and I like it. And then I particularly like when you meet your friends for dinner and they're complaining about the stock market falling. And that's what got me in hot water in 2015. Because I ran my mouth to some friends who turned out not to be so friends. And they leaked it to the Danish press. And before I know it, I was the bad day trader that made a killing while everyone else was losing their pensions. Doesn't matter that the Dow since then has rallied 400%. Not to the media. Yeah. Oh boy. But I think the worst part of it was that the story broke whilst I was having my birthday dinner with my mum, who on that particular day turned 80 years old. And the whole family was congregated. You know, everything from children to grandchildren to an extended family to people we never heard of. And then the story broke. Ah, yes. Also fair to say that I changed a few perceptions of myself on that particular day. Up until then, I think my family just treated me as a, he's just clicking the mouse and, gambler. Although, to be fair, there are still segments of the Hugard clan that believe that what I do is gambling. Now I'm just sort of beyond caring what people think. Problems that I hope that you will encounter yourself, my dear friends. There's nothing like being able to hold your head high when you have written a good trend down and then you're splashed on the front pages of the tabloids of your particular country. Oh yeah. So we got a first bar negative in the DAX. And ironically, not ironically, I have done a significant amount of research in first bar negative in the DAX on a 5-minute chart. But I don't take it because I find the DAX to be less predictable than, say, the FTSE that also had a first bar negative. However, for first bar negative to trigger, you need to trade below the low. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but you should have noticed it. Let's get rid of this. Is that yesterday we also had a first bar negative. And full disclosure, I didn't trade it, but what I particularly paid attention to was, and there will be upgraded material from me. What I paid particular attention to on this day that, let's see if I can just get in the hang of the new features, which are impressive. What I paid particular attention to was that while it was a first bar negative and it triggered a buy signal here below 24, what the new research suggests is that if you have a first bar negative, but you then swap over to a 15-minute chart, and the 15-minute chart actually closes negative, I believe the research firmly suggests that you need to close the long position and go short. And this is based on the research that I have done. I was going to show you this, but perhaps we don't want this session to turn into a research, and we do actually want to trade. Maybe I can just and so what I noticed when you have a first bar negative on a 5-minute, which is what you see here. We can just take a couple of random examples. What you want to happen is the response to be fairly immediate. You don't want it to wait. If I then change this particular chart to 15-minute, assuming that the first 15-minute bar is negative, but we're trading below the low of your entry, then you need to get out. So let's see if I can find a better example. I'm sure there. No, that's not a good example either. And that's not a good example either. I imagine this would be a good example. You have a first bar negative, which triggers a long here at bar 5. But then you actually have a second 15-minute bar that trades below the low of the first. So if I show you on a 5-minute, so we trigger here, and then we close down here, and that means that the success rate for this is low, and we should be short. Didn't work out on this one either, but hey, that's I don't cherry pick my charts. I just try to reverse engineer patterns that works well. Here's another example. You have here you actually do have a first bar negative that works immediately. That's the irony of it. But if you look at the 15-minute chart, the 15-minute bar is actually positive or undecided. Here perhaps is a better example. There's a 15-minute bar and it closes negative and then the low breaks. What does it look like on a 5-minute? Yeah, this is a good example. We trigger a long here below bar 1. Whether we ever get a stop loss break even, it remains to be seen. And here actually, it turns out to be okay. As I said, this is research that I have yet to publish. And complete, for that matter. Okay, let's go back to the FTSE. Haven't traded yet. First bar negative, second bar inside, third bar so far indicative of an early trading range. DAX is not showing any signs of any meaningful direction. Bar 3 is an inside bar 2, bar 2 is an inside bar 1. I know bar 2 isn't technically an inside bar of bar 1, but for all intents and purposes, when you got a low at 109 and a low at 108, and the vast majority of the trading takes place inside the bar, I think you can make an argument that the vast majority of the trading is taking place inside the range of the first 5 minutes. I'm gonna keep these 2 lines here. They're not bad reference points. So I'd like to just post a comment here. I will keep it anonymously, but I think it's a valid point. So an individual is contacting me, and hang on. On that trade you described, although I have described a few, so it could be the Dow trade that I held in 2015 or 2018. Not sure which one, but what I do want to point out is this. Perhaps I didn't do that quite as well as I wanted to, so let me do that again. Right there is the problem. This is a human emotion. An urge is a desire to achieve a state of mind. It could be achieving a sense of equilibrium. It could be pandering to fear. It could be pandering to greed. And I just want to make one thing clear, I'm not a robot by any sense. But what I do, that I am crediting much of my trading success with, is that I am mindful of my emotions. And I think my emotions will give me valuable clues as to what I need to work on. And so if I experience a strong urge and I give into the urge, and it turns out to be contrary to what I'm hoping to achieve, then I have made a note of that. Let me give you a very recent example. On the day that I was trading this week, I noticed something that I didn't like in myself. I describe it as follows. I am keeping an eye on the market. I describe it as follows. This frame here is the Dow, and this frame here is the Nasdaq. So let me just put some ND set. Make that little pretty color here. And Dow. So we were trading together here in the channel, and the Nasdaq did roughly like this. Choose a different color. It had a negative. 1 second. There we go. I'll make this bar a little thinner. Nasdaq did this. Had a negative open for the first 5 minutes. Then rally. More rally. This is over a period of 5-10 minutes. More rally. More rally. More rally. While the Dow was positive, and then down, a little bit up. I am struggling to write this in paint, but there you go. A little bit more down. And then a bit more down, and a bit more down, but still sort of in a range. But and I noticed something about the way that my mind was interpreting this. Over here, and I need you to be exceptionally mindful here that this is me revealing my inner thoughts, so that by doing so I give you permission to explore those crevices of your psyche that perhaps is not to your work to your favor when you're trading. The Nasdaq, Jesus, I've got a frog in my throat. I think I'm a bit dehydrated. Let me just have a sip here, 1 sec. And I know that this is what happened because I make notes about my mental state, and I'm observant of my mental state whilst I'm trading. I noticed that the Nasdaq was rallying, and it was the day that it hit 30,000. And I was inclined not to trade that. I was not mentally prepared for a big rally in the Nasdaq. Even though the Nasdaq, and this is the important point, which one of these two is the strong one? Well, that's not going to fly on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire question, is it? It's this one. This is where the strength is, without a doubt. Yet my mind was looking for longs in the Dow, not the Nasdaq. So what does that say about my mind at that particular moment in time? It absolutely argued that I didn't have the right mindset on that particular afternoon, because I was looking for the Dow to rally. I was looking for setups here. Now, if you go back to the 26th, this is what happened on the 26th of May. So I'm just going to write 26th May, because I think I personally, this example has gone into my book of horror, because I think it's telling about habits that you don't want to creep into your trading. Excuse me. On this particular day, if you go back to the 26th and you see what I am publishing, sure it is the 26th, isn't it? Let me just check. Just gonna double check. Yeah, it is. You'll see that I'm losing on the Dow. Not a lot, in fairness, 20 points, which is hardly a lot. And then I finish. But it's the post at 15:28. Sorry, 15:20, at least European time, where I post, you know what? I didn't say this at the time. I recognize what my mind is trying to do. And I had this urge to want to be a buyer. Why didn't I buy the Nasdaq instead? That's where the evidence was. And recognizing that, I said, I am going to short the Dow. And I did. And then immediately after, 3 minutes after, I'm doubling up. So I'm 200% short. And you'll have noticed when we started this morning, so, oh man, I missed that. Just allow me to finish this lesson here, because I think it's a valuable one. If you go to the 26 and you see the price action right here, right there is where I double up and I go short. But unfortunately, I also had extremely bad internet. And what I was concerned about was that this market was going to turn on me, and I didn't have an opportunity to either get out of my own position or inform you to get out. But my entry was at 573, which is here, and then again at 566. These trades here are trades that are not technical, but purely going, why am I chasing a long position in a market just because I feel that I missed out on something else? I felt I missed out here. And recognizing this thought pattern, I decided I am going to do the exact opposite of what my urge is. And if that damn internet hadn't been as fucked as it was, we would have been short. Where we would have gotten out, well, that's probably where I would have begun to actually try to do some target projection. But target or no target, what I find is interesting in this story is listening to how my mind was processing, because you have to understand that your mind will always gravitate towards the path of least resistance. As I always say, my six-pack isn't made in the gym. It is made in extreme discipline in the kitchen. My wealth isn't made because I won the lottery. is by applying the same principles day after day after day. But you can't just show up in the trading arena and hoping for the best, which is why I'm disciplined about how I eat, how I sleep, how I recover. And while I'm forever work in progress and perfection eludes me all too frequently, it isn't for the lack of trying. And isn't that the hallmark of success, ladies and gentlemen, that we actually keep showing up? I was writing on, I was just writing, which I often do when I have an opportunity to just reflect. And I was philosophically pondering upon the difference between regret and failure. And I think that society has a modern society has a completely flawed perspective of what success is and what failure is. And I was pondering upon the difference between what are my regrets in life and what are my failures in life. Because you don't fail at something until you stop trying. Like the famous example of the light bulb being invented. There was no failure. You just keep trying, keep trying. It might not have worked the first time around. I used to live in London for many years until I moved, and there was a let me just look it up. There was a England takes their football very seriously, and in the UEFA 1996, Gareth Southgate missed a penalty that meant that England went out of the semi-final. And ever since then, every football punter and every fucking commentator has been talking about Gareth Southgate failing at the 1996. But let's turn it on its head. How about that the goalkeeper succeeded? How about on that particular day, the goalkeeper was just better? How is that failure? And can I also just point out that there's 10 other players who also then failed. He was not the one that failed alone, if you want to talk about failure. No, we can argue that there were 10 other players that failed to deliver in regular playing time. And that's my point, is that this gentleman here has now been lumbered with the label of having failed to deliver. Not a word has been mentioned about the goalkeeper that succeeded. Telegram is kicking out, just so you know. Okay, let's have a look at the markets. Oh my God, just get on with it, Telegram. All right, so I think I noted that this seemed like trade. Oh my God. I'm just going to turn Telegram off and back on again. Telegram back on. I think I noted earlier that it seemed to be indicative of trading range behavior in the FTSE. Let's get rid of the Dow, and then let's look at the DAX. The DAX interestingly, is struggling to get a close above 140. We have a school run signal triggering down here at 81. We have closed the gap Friday. Last Friday of the month, actually last day of the month, last trading day of the month. I suppose the Cinderella story of the Gareth Southgate story is that he's the one that actually did so well. As an England manager. Anyway, no trades on my part yet. FTSE. FTSE for most of the trading session so far has traded inside the range of the first 15 minutes. One way we can play school run today is to say we need a close above 142. We need a 5-minute candle to close above 142. The trigger will come at 146. But we have to at least ponder, even though that is a bullish market, we have to at least ponder if today perhaps is more a seller's market. We can measure the retracements. I'll do that on a 1 minute chart. So the retracements up have been 54 points. If I take the current, voila, 54 points. What do you know? That's what we call geometry. It's beautiful. If I open a fresh chart in the DAX, we have to at least consider that today is an anti in the DAX. We got a negative first bar, we got a negative second bar. Still, we haven't broken even the low or the high. So with 3 minutes to go, the third 15-minute bar is pretty much trading unchanged. We are just slightly positive on the session. Stand by. I would like to be a buyer of the DAX. Interesting levels, 105, 106. Stand by. Along the DAX, trying to sort of buy around the 116 area. It's gonna have a tight stop loss on this. Where is my stop loss? Oops. Gonna have a stop loss at 101. So I'm betting with extremely tight stop loss that we're sort of just in a trading range. You notice that if I show you here, that we are, if I measure from this low here to this high here, we're sort of just sat here in the 50%. So notice this area. So we're just sat here in the 50%. I'm thinking, right, probably going to test 36 again. That would be nice at least. My entry should have been better. It should have been at 10, but it wasn't. If I get 10 points in profit, I'll move stop loss. I could even argue that I should move the stop loss up to below 9 or 8 or 7, but it kind of is. So the first rally was 54 points. If we rally from here at the 50% retracement, well, maybe we're going to get 165. That would be what they call an ABCD. Okay. Let's move the stop loss up. If you change your time frame a little bit, say that we get a positive close here in the DAX on this 10-minute chart. I think you can, with some degree of integrity, move your stop loss to below the low of that. So we can do that together. In fact, we can probably move it a little bit better. So stop loss to 25, 112.80. So let's go back to this. 142 is our espresso level. I noted earlier in our conversation that I'd like to see a close above 142 on a 5-minute chart. that was signal to me that we got some oomph on this. We have traded above the high of the third 15-minute candle. So when you have the indecision and an inside bar, that tends to be a sign of strength, meaning that there will be traders that takes comfort in the market trading above 136. However, perhaps not the worst idea in the world to wait for confirmation. You see how we again didn't manage to close above 142. And there's nothing scientific or as such about 142, at least not to my mind. But it is an area that I think could trigger a close above it, could trigger a push towards 165. I got three DAX charts. One that you can't see and two that you can't see. You can see. Just gonna measure something here in the FTSE. I don't want to lose on this position now, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm moving stop loss to break even. I'm 16 points in profit. I don't want this to be one of those sessions. Even if it goes down and touches my stop loss, I will say, okay, well, that was just one of those sessions, but I don't want to lose on that now. So school run is triggering now with a push above 146. We are already long. Got an entry at 121. Somebody has told me that there's news coming out. I have checked the news and it seems to me to be irrelevant news. So 165 was my objective. We hit 163. Always the chance that you can see how that also coincides with bar 2 and bar 3 highs. 64. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll take profit here. There you go, closed. Transaction history. And then I shall go and nurture my my body. Can I just show you something? See this guy here? His name is Matt. A few years ago, when I wrote my book, Best Loser Wins, I decided that all proceeds, all royalties from the book should go to charity, but specifically to children. So I have supported a multitude of small endeavors, not all of them children related. Bought sleeping bags for the homeless, funded a soup kitchen with staff and premises, bought epileptic medicine for or cannabis medicine for a little girl suffering from epileptic seizures. But Matt, he came into my area of attention because his father was one of those people who followed my work as a trader. And when he heard that I was looking to find worthy causes to sponsor, he suggested his son. And this is Matt. I started supporting Matt 3 years ago. And Matt has just turned 13 years old. Matt suffers from a progressive muscle wasting disease. I'm afraid the name of it eludes me at this moment. But Matt is a sensation in men's tennis. He competed and became runner-up at the Grand Slam in Australia, and right now he is in Paris competing in wheelchair tennis as just 13 years old. And if he wins, he will be the youngest ever winner. And of course, I'm cheering for him. But the reason why I'm bringing this up to you is that I promised Matt and his dad that if he reaches the final, I will drop absolutely everything that I'm doing and I will get a plane to Paris. I will steal a car. I don't know what I'll do, but I will be there and I will cheer for Matt in the final. So if you all of a sudden get a message that says, not here today, then that's because I have traveled to Paris to support the guy that I have financially supported, significantly supported, I will say, over the last 3 years. So go, Matt. We're all fucking cheering for you, mate. You got this one. Yeah, an incredible young man. He was interviewed by the Times just about 5 days ago. See if I can find it. I think I can. Meet the Formula One mad kid, 13 years old, who was on a turbocharged ride in wheelchair tennis. Matt Knudsen idolizes Ayrton Senna, Prost, Niki Lauda, and now he's got the French Open's boy title in sight. So we wish you all the very best, Matt. We're cheering for you. That's me done. I wouldn't say that my price objective, I would say that technically my price objective was met, but that's not really how I normally trade. I'm more fucking let's just pile in, but I'm not really feeling it this morning. So I'm happy to, I'm not happy with that, but there you go. Okay. You take care of yourself wherever you are in the world. Stay strong. Be grateful. It's all good. Lots of love. Bye bye for now.